right, so hey, it is time for episode 119 of the Campus Comic Cast. I am joined on this episode by
Mike Atchison
and Shad Schubert.
And of course, the three of us are all fans of Muddy Monster Comics, located at 1422 Walnut Street in Murfreesboro, Illinois. Store hours are Tuesday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you have not been in the shop recently, you should. And here, spoiler, I'm going to give you a bit of special information for listeners of the podcast. This is, to my knowledge, has not been published any place yet. So just going to say, July 23rd, Muddy Monster Comics is going to be Mighty Morphin again with another Muddy Monster Mini-Con. That's all you're going to get for now. So, because we got a lot of ground to cover in this episode, so we're just going to get started. So, all right.
Hot dog.
Three things we want to talk about this episode: Strange Adventures, issues 7 to 12, Abbott 1973, the 5 issues of that series, and of course the 6 episodes of Hawkeye. And we're going to start with Strange Adventures. Now, I got to say, as a general rule, I really like Tom King's writing. However, there's always some big sticking point with me that sometimes it just rubs you the wrong way. I just can't get past. You know, like, for example, on the Rebirth Batman stuff, in the very first issue, he's riding this plane and he keeps asking Alfred, is this a good death, Alfred? It's like, really? Are you giving up because you're just on a plane? You've been in worse situations before, and this is the point where you're going to give up is because you're on a plane that's falling out of the sky? I don't get this whole is this a good death thing. And then, of course, in Mr. Miracle, there was this idea that Scott-Free would have been suicidal. And it's just like, I can't accept that premise for that particular story. And I've got the same issue here again with Strange Adventures, because there's a couple issues that I have with Strange Adventures. One is that he has to create this fictional enemy that Adam Strange fought instead of using even something minor from Adam Strange's history as a character. And he definitely felt like this character needed to be reinterpreted instead of being a Silver Age sci-fi character into like some type of modern dark interpretation. So like that's kind of a couple of things that really bothered me as I was reading Strange Adventures. So I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts about Tom King's writing style before we actually get into the issues?
Mike does.
Yeah. If he wasn't muted, we would hear what he was saying. So,
I'm sorry. So into my thoughts here.
That's right. It gave you time to gather your thoughts at least.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, it's another example. This Strange Adventure story is another example where Tom King succeeded in getting me to love the story, but not necessarily love the outcome. Okay. His storytelling ability is second to none, really. But the fan in me makes me not want to know that Mr. Miracle's suicidal, not want to know that Wally West was capable of killing several in a fit of mental distress, including one of his best friends, Roy Harper, in Heroes in Crisis. And, you know, the idea of Adam Strange in this is basically probably more palatable what he ends up doing than the Mr. Miracle book or the Wally West what he did, because Adam Strange really is a warrior. He's in a war almost always, fighting off incursions and invasions from other races on his adopted planet of Ran. So it was a little bit more understandable to know or to accept some of the things he did. However, many of the other things he did will still be considered war crimes, no matter where you are. So that part, I felt, well, that giving sympathy to his situation is no better than giving sympathy to other despots or other extreme actions throughout history. So, you know, again, separating myself from whether this is canon or whether this, you know, I used to think, well, all of this stuff that Tom King's writing like this would be not canon. Mm-hmm. But Wally West, you know, they sort of adopted that as, yes, this really happened because he had to redeem himself in some subsequent series. And he's back to being, quote unquote, the good guy, Wally. Whereas Adam Strange, well, he's unredeemable or irredeemable, I guess you'd say.
Well, the difference though is at least with Strange Adventures of Mr. Miracle, those are Black Label books, so it's
Yeah.
a stronger argument for them to not be canon than there is for
Yes.
Heroes in Crisis and Batman. So
Right. But it's the same kind of story. So I guess the result of that is I wish they would have made Heroes in Crisis Black
a
Label.
Black Label, yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
We'll live with that then. So once you accept that, I think it is probably my favorite of his series that he's his finite series that he's written. I mean, everything from Rorschach to Supergirl, The Woman of Tomorrow, and Mr. Miracle, and all that. So it's just it's shocking. For the same reason some people didn't like Identity Crisis because of what happened to Sue Dibney by Dr. Light, and then the whole mind wipe thing and the moral crossing of the line by the Justice League. They didn't like that, and that was treated as canon as well. So anyway, that's my general thoughts. But I mean, having said that, to me it's I reread, like I said earlier, I reread 7 through 12 again tonight or today, and it's just absolutely magnificent. The art, both by
Mitch Gerards and
by
Evan
Mitch
Shaner.
Gerards and Evan Shaner, Dr. Shaner. I mean, both in their own style is fantastic, and the storytelling is great, and it's a easy to follow, and it's got great characterization. But so yeah, all in all, I can't not like it, but I just don't like the way it ended up.
All right, so I got a real brief recap for issues 1 to 6. Of course, we talked about issues 1 through 6 on a previous episode. I should have looked at that episode number, but I didn't do that. And then you tell me if I miss any really, really major points for issues 1 through 6 that we need to address. So Adam Strange has returned to Earth. He's basically on a book tour. During the book tour, he's confronted by someone accusing him of making a deal with the Picts, and the Picts are this alien race that had invaded Rand that he beat back, and then now these Picts are on their way to Earth, basically. So the problem for Adam Strange is that the person who confronted him later turns up dead. People think that he is guilty, so he asks Batman to investigate, and Batman, instead of investigating himself, turns to Mr. Terrific to perform that investigation. And then during the course of the story, we learn that the Picts are invading Rand, and that Adam Strange cannot find anyone to help him in the battle. He's even asked Superman to come, and he's like, well, Superman's like, if I go to Rand, then I leave Earth defended. So he's asked for a lot of help from Earth's heroes, and nobody's willing to help him out. But somehow, whenever Adam Strange does return to Rand, and I guess we should talk about that Man of Two Worlds, where he just seemingly randomly teleports back and forth between Rand and Earth. But somehow when he returns to Rand, he's actually able to defeat the Picts, though it is at the cost of his daughter. We then learn that the Picts are on their way to Earth, and then issue 6 kind of ends with a flashback of Adam Strange as he's being captured by the Picts. So anything really pivotal from the first 6 issues you feel like I left out?
No, that's a great summary. Shad, you haven't spoke yet, so feel free.
This is actually my first venture into Tom King. I've never read anything Tom King, so I don't have any overall thoughts into it, except for the first half of it. I felt like I didn't follow along as well as I had wanted to. I felt like, I don't know if it was a slow kind of setup that just kind of didn't pull me along the way I wanted it to, but I knew I had to get through it to get to issue 7 with you guys. But then I felt like the back half of this really, flowed really well. And so the first half I wasn't super impressed with. I was just kind of like, okay, this is definitely a war story. And you can tell that from what I hear other people saying about these, especially these kind of mini finite series of Tom King's, that there is a lot of trauma and war, and he knows his stuff when it comes to that. And so you can definitely tell that there's some either personal experience or very close experience with him to a lot of what he's addressing in this stuff. But yeah, that sounds Sounds like what I read on issues 1 through 6.
All right, good deal. So issue 7 starts with Adam basically being tortured by the Picts. There's actually this, and I forgot the race. It's like Afgharan or something like that. There's a very human-looking person that's actually performing the torture on Adam Strange. Back on Earth, the first of the Pict scouts has arrived, and he's beaten by Batman. But Adam Strange kills this scout, and of course we've got this whole jumping back and forth in time. And it's not so much time travel; we're seeing flashbacks, and then we're seeing the current time. So anytime that Adam Strange seems to be not where he's supposed to be, it's because we're in one timeline or another timeline. So back where Adam's being tortured, he is able to kill his torturers, but of course he's still in this room surrounded by the Picts. There is a very important moment in this story that basically changes this whole book for me. I remember when we were reading the first 6 episodes, after we were done recording, I asked Mike, it's like, have you read issue 7 yet? And he's like, no, he hadn't read issue 7. I was like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about issue 7. So the big reveal here in issue 7 is that while Adam is talking to his wife, Alana, he admits that he actually is the one responsible. He killed that person who had confronted him. So he basically admits to her that he is the murderer. Now, he was convinced that this was some type of Pict in disguise, but basically after he killed him, he was just a regular human being. So here we have Adam Strange basically admitting that he is a murderer. So what are your thoughts on issue 7?
Well, there were several pivotal moments in this, or at least 2 or 3, that really made the reader realize, okay, this is not the Adam Strange that I grew up reading. First of all, after the Pict in the very first few pages, the Pict that had surrendered, and Adam kind of talked him to putting his weapon down. Adam shoots him in cold blood. Mm-hmm. That was one. Another one was where he and Batman were fighting, on Earth, the invasion, the Picts that were invading, and Batman was basically non-lethally subduing a Pict, and Adam comes up and just shoots him, and Batman says, what the hell are you doing? You can't kill them. And Adam says, no, you can't kill them because you're a superhero. I'm something else. And I thought that's pivotal. And then lastly, it really showed, it was really well done how somebody like that is rationalizing their actions, and even how their wife, Alana here, after the course of 2 or 3 pages, is accepting that as well, because what's really important to her is that they killed their daughter, Aaliyah. Yes. So that's what kind of it comes down to with her. So those were the main points. And this was a turning point for me, realizing, okay, this is probably not going to go. It's not going to have a happy ending.
He's definitely not hiding anything about Aaliyah at this point.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Very specifically, no, I'm not hiding anything about her.
Right.
Wink.
Yeah, well, he definitely is revealing only part of the truth to his wife because he knows he can't tell her the truth about Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, like I said, this is where the whole book changed for me, because up until for the first 6 issues, I thought he was innocent. Right. So we're basically taking that innocence away from this character, and again, that's kind of a surprise for that. This character coming out of the 60s science fiction age, where you get the goofy kind of stories, and it's kind of funny when they kind of throw back to some of those goofy stories and some of the, in some of the flashback moments. Like, well, that's the Adam Strange that I know, not this Adam Strange.
Right.
Any other thoughts on 7?
No, not on 7, although just that it was an important issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was, when we recorded the first time, it's like, I really regretted that we didn't go on to 7. We really needed to talk about 7 last time, because you had 6 issues of him being innocent, and now all of a sudden, nope, it's not the case.
So. It definitely changed the pace of the story just overall. It just turned it into this no longer a murder mystery, but like what's gonna happen. It wasn't who did it, but like what's gonna go down.
And Shad, I wanted to mention earlier, you said, you're sort of a Tom King, um, you're new to his writing.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, the first 6 issues were pretty slow. And I really think because Tom King is at heart really a fan, you have to be steeped a little bit into the DC history or the Marvel history, depending on who he's writing with or for. Because he tends to do what a lot of writers, good or bad, a lot of writers do that. I think Grant Morrison's the worst for me because he gets so deep. I'm like, I need to research this to even understand what the heck he's talking about. But at least these characters aren't so obscure that if you have a little bit of working knowledge of some of the history of the character, it's an easy pick. But if you haven't read any of this stuff before, Adam Strange or any writing by Tom King, I can see where you're coming from for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I was thinking about this story, and especially just we had a little bit of a conversation. I think last time we recorded, just kind of touching base on this. And Mike, you had mentioned some things about how this isn't your Adam Strange, or isn't the way that the character was portrayed previously. And I thought, well, this is a really good story. And what would it happen if you just took it out of the DC universe and had some superhero analogs that he kind of interacted with from time to time, but was really this whole different character? It would be a really good indie book story.
It really would. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think also the shock value makes it a good mainstream company story because of this effect. By the time we got done with these 6 issues, I was challenging my own initial notion that this isn't my Adam Strange. I'm like, well, you know what? Yeah. Who's to say that this can't happen? I'd rather it happen. Like I said, this was more. I could take this a lot more than the Mr. Miracle self-loathing. I need to get out of this life, suicidal. I just could not deal with that. Hey, sometimes characters turn to the dark side, and it's not like it's Superman doing it. It's a sort of a B or C list character.
And especially the way that it kind of ends, as we get to that, I like the idea that there is a fiction of what happened that is published to the world,
right?
And that is the Adam Strange that you knew all along was this fiction that was published out.
Yep.
That was pretty cool. I know that's like 5 issues later.
So issue 8, Scott?
So issue 8, basically in issue 8, we have the Pict invasion has begun in earnest. The heroes of Earth, though they are definitely being pushed, seem to be actually holding their own. But apparently there is a flaw in Batman's plan, and a gap opens up in their defenses around Phoenix, Arizona. And that results in I'm going to say the complete destruction of Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, that's what the image, implies to me. Which, everybody is kind of shocked by this. And then to kind of go back in time, we kind of have this where Adam Strange is basically taking a little break with his daughter. So they're going to go on some little excursion. And that's how this issue ends. I mean, there's obviously a lot more that happens in this issue, but those are kind of the big points for me.
Yeah. I enjoyed this issue for the pure sake of seeing some of the Earth heroes involved in fighting the Picts. That gave you, a little bit of that superhero action that scratched that itch for you. And still progress the story. It was pretty shocking to see what Flash was counting up around 35,000 people dead in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. It was a good interlude with the past flashback of with Adam and Aliyah.
Alana. Oh no, Aliyah, right at the end.
Yeah.
That's I just flipped to the page
where it was
Alana. Yeah.
And probably my favorite scene though in this issue was when Batman and Mr. Terrific were interrogating the Pict, and Batman's his grammar in Pict isn't as good as what Mr. Terrific's is. Just seeing the way they translate, that's great writing there. That's just really cool. I mean, Batman's way it's translated from Pick to English is kind of jumbled up. But then when the Pick speaks and it's translated in English, it makes sense. And of course, Mr. Terrific, he understands it a little bit better. But it's where I think this is the issue before Mr. Terrific really comes to his. It all comes to he understands what really happened, and we'll hear about that next issue.
I think it's 10 is where I think we get the information in the report.
Oh, okay.
That's what I have in my notes anyway.
It probably is, yeah.
I think he gives the report, but this is where he kind of intends where he writes the letter to Alana. So 9. I'm sorry, Shad. Did you have anything else you want to add on issue 8?
The only thing that I wish that there was a little bit more of how he got out of that interrogation room with the Picks and back on to Rand, because that was just a little gap that I was like, how in the heck did he get out of that? There was a room full of Picks there.
And I think, that ultimately is what this is all heading towards, right?
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's why they couldn't tell us right then, because otherwise what we learn in the report doesn't have the impact that it has.
That didn't click to me. That's why we talk about these things.
That's
so it makes way
there
more sense to me.
You're right, because issue 9 starts with, am I holding the wrong issue? Yeah, no, okay. The issue 9 starts is they are standing at Aaliyah's grave. So something from the time he left on their little excursion till this moment resulted in them creating a grave for Aaliyah. Now I'm dancing around, the fact that there's just a grave here because spoilers, I know what's coming, right? So, but back on Earth, and again, they're in the midst of this Pict invasion. Adam Strange is actually being viewed as a hero, even though, they're starting to realize that, hey, he, killed this guy. But they see him like, saving Batman and the I don't know, what they're basically saying on like the news channels and such is this is the man who is going to do what it takes to save the Earth. Justice is great, but we've got to save the planet to be able to have justice, right? So, so there's like this swing in people's perceptions of Adam Strange because of all the news media and blitz that they've done to actually, kind of promote their story. And then, of course, towards the end, we get Mr. Terrific is now actually penning a letter to Alana, basically to kind of explain some of his findings of his investigation.
And what you're saying there is something I read in one of the articles or an interview with Tom King about this. And he says he talks about how it draws parallels to our own real world issue of people choosing to believe something, no matter how true it is, as long as their quote unquote guy says it's true. And King says that's the whole big thing. That I think that's just the time. It's kind of a timely thing with that, and I don't know if it was completely intentional, but he did speak to it on this interview. So yeah, I think the people of Earth were wanting to believe that these Picts were doing what they were doing, and that Adam was a hero. It makes it convenient and simple. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting interview.
Anything else to add for issue 9?
I did have something, if I can remember now. I was flipping through it again. This is just where Batman was injured, and again, Adam's kind of carried him off, and that elevated his status with the people of Earth. And but yeah, it's at the very end of it is where Mr. Terrific he writes a note or a letter to Alana to invite her to talk with them, because he says there are a lot of lies going around, and I think that you're ready for some truth. So it was,
and we get that note in the next issue.
Yes. Yep.
So in issue 10, this is where we get it's not the report, we get that letter, I think, that he wrote to Alana, kind of explaining his what he discovered during his investigation. So in the report, Mr. Terrific points out that a few things had to have happened. One, the Picts let Adam Strange win whenever they clearly had him defeated. That even though Earth is much more powerful and much more prepared than what Rand ever was, somehow the Picts are somehow defeating Earth. And this is kind of the big thing, that Adam Strange clearly faked the death of his daughter. So what Mr. Terrific determines is that the reason why Adam Strange wanted them to investigate the murder of this person who had confronted him was to basically hide the larger sin that he had made a deal with the Picts, basically to exchange Rand for Earth, and as a bargaining chip, Aaliyah, his daughter, was left with the Picts.
Yes.
Yeah, so huge swing in our understanding of the story here inside of issue 10.
And the motivations in this are more acceptable in some ways than just some of the outright killings of surrendering Picts, and that I get the whole part where he was trying to save his daughter. Is it rational? Is it right? No. But can I see someone doing that if you know the only way to save one planet is to give up the other, and the one you're saving happens to be the planet where your family's from, your wife and your daughter, and all of that. Yeah, I mean, none of it's right, but it's like, well, okay, I can see that happening, just bargaining that away. So the three inconsistencies with what the whole story's been is that the Picts, they somehow weren't able to win on Rand, and they were somehow winning on Earth, and then the whole faking of his daughter's death, and even though that wasn't explained why until later, but that was the three things that Mr. Terrific, the conclusions he came to. And this issue had some of the best art by Gerard's with Alana. I mean, this guy made her both formidable and beautiful, and so she's more human than what Adam is probably. I really get a kick out of the whole she smokes because it's acceptable on Earth, plus it takes away the stink that in the atmosphere because she's Ranian and she's not used to the atmosphere. So good writing, good art, and this was an enjoyable issue because for all of that, plus there was all of these revelations.
And I can't remember if they specifically addressed those three, like you talked about the inconsistencies, but so what ultimately that means is that whatever Strange was there being held captive by the Picts, they made a deal, right? Yeah. That's the whole reason, because Mr. Terrific's
and that answers Shad's question of how did he get out?
Right? Yeah. Because they made a deal. So because as violent as the Picts were, why didn't they just kill him? If that was the thing that keeps them from taking the planet, then why not just kill him? So, but there was the exchange of his daughter as the promise, and also apparently Adam Strange is feeding information to the Picts, and that is what allowed them to get through that gap in Phoenix and cause the destruction of Phoenix, Arizona. They kind of hit on that as well. So lots of stuff going on in the mind of Adam Strange.
If I were the Picts, though, I'd be like, dude, you need to calm down, because he's brutally just like by this issue, he's just slaughtering Picts.
Well, and that was part of it. As part of their agreement was, it was like
you had to make it look real.
It was like a destruction in kind. We killed a lot of Ranians and stuff like that, so you can kill as many Picts as you want in exchange as part of this deal. So that was,
and it made it more. It was to make his. It would make for a better story because the more Picts he killed, the more dedicated he was to protecting Earth. So or Ran in Earth. So it made him look more innocent.
Couldn't possibly be working with them. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
On the only other note I had, did you guys? I know you would have noticed it, but the there's the panel of the flashback where the coloring starts to go away and it goes down to the line drawings. It's like it's got to be like the third or fourth to last page of the book, and I wondered what the symbolism to that was, where they're flying around.
Oh yeah, just on that one panel at the top of it's like the first.
It's almost like it's
fourth page from the last,
like implying that it's his story's unraveling, or things aren't lining up. For like, there's got to be some sort of symbolism to it.
Or is he being teleported away?
Well, it goes all the way down to like the profile line drawings, even like the little blue the blue lines in his face and everything.
It's where Adam is in the foreground and flying towards us, is what you're the top panel. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Almost looks like he's turning transparent. Which would lead you to believe that maybe he's being teleported, but that's a good observation, Chad. I didn't notice that before.
It's kind of just a weird. It's the only one in the entire series that I saw where they do something like that, but it's gotta mean something. I would assume
it probably does. I doubt that it's just what we forgot to color and finish that
and erase the reference lines and everything.
Because it's like, okay, so that's Atlanta in the background, right? The one saying we're winning.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay, so and then the next panel, there's only one person in a jetpack. So I had interpreted that to be he got pulled away. But but it's different. It's different in appearance than it is at other times. You are 100% correct. So
yeah, I think symbolically, I think that's as good of a theory as anything, that things are unraveling, and the real Adam is going to be revealed soon, down to his most basic, like you said, the reference lines on the drawing of him. Yeah, that's good. Chad, you're deep, man.
All right, so issue 11. Whenever I picked up my issues and I was sitting in the car reading, I read issue 11 before I read issue 10, and I was like, some things just don't quite seem in order. I've missed something, and so I had to go back and read issue 10 and then read issue 11 again. So, but anyway, here we have, Atlanta has now read the information that came from Mr. Terrific. Alana confronts Adam about the report and, wants the truth. And Adam Strange pulls his laser gun on her, which really, I guess is intended to show just how far gone he actually is. And ultimately, there's a struggle, and Alana is able to actually get the best of Adam Strange, and Adam Strange is shot, and we assume at this point that he is killed.
This is the most dramatic issue so far, probably for the whole series. The confrontation. This is really the climax for me. This issue, not issue 12. And I mean, Mitch Gerard's again. It can't be understated just how good of an artist he is. The look on his face when he does finally draw his laser gun on his own wife is deadpan, and it shows the crazed look that that he's so far gone now he can't let her tell the Justice League of what's going on and risk Aaliyah, because in his mind he did it for her and maybe for Atlanta too, but he in Atlanta, man, she's ruthless. She basically demoralizes him as much as she can. She verbally dresses him down, and I thought it was great. And then, of course, like you said, the struggle with the laser gun. He didn't want to shoot her. She didn't want, it was an accidental discharge of the weapon, and he was left laying on the ground bleeding, and that's how it ended.
But just for the fact that while he's got a gun to her, she's just walking around like, you're not going to do it. She lights a cigarette. She's just like telling him off this entire time, still just going on about it. Like, she's completely in control.
I'm telling you, this is my wife. My wife might as well be named Atlanta. If I did that, she'd be like, you dumb you ding dong, you're not going to do anything, you know. So that's what I meant earlier when I said she's so formidable, so strong willed, and so whether she's, you know, seeing her kind of go from one extreme to the other, you know, originally she was all supportive of her husband, and watching her go from that to being jaded and hate filled was sad and dramatic, all wrapped up in one.
Well, I viewed it as in the beginning, I felt like she was manipulating Adam Strange, and by
Mhm.
the end, we see that it is Adam Strange has been manipulating her
Yeah.
the entire time.
Right.
And
Right.
it is, again, it's just a big swing for that character.
Right. Right.
Issue 12.
Yeah.
All right, I've only got 2 sentences on issue 12, so
Oh.
basically, Alana and Mr. Terrific meet with the Picts to attempt to free Aaliyah, and well, she just takes matters into her own hands and kills the Picts and gets her daughter back. And they kind of agree at the end that the story that is going to be told is that Adam Strange basically killed himself and because of what was going on.
Yeah.
And not that he had, sold out Earth and ran to the Picts. So,
well, I had a little bit of trouble with the fact that that's how they got I mean, they had a whole army of Picts on a spaceship orbiting Mars, and because she shot one of the Picts, they all gave up, and all I see there is her and Mr. Terrific. So I found that to be, maybe I'm missing something.
Well, I think the point is that the only reason that the Picts had any leverage on Earth was because of the information that had been being fed in the background from Adam Strange.
Right.
And then once they lost Adam Strange, they lost that information, and that card that they could have played, against them with being Aaliyah, well, he wasn't there to play that card against.
Yeah.
Now, why they didn't just kill her immediately, who knows?
Right.
But that's how I interpreted they were able to get to that point.
I guess you could fill in the blanks that they maybe didn't know that Adam was dead at the time that that Alana set up the meeting with them, and somewhere in the gaps of story, she says, "I'm taking my daughter, and also, by the way, your informant is dead."
Yeah.
And maybe that's we give up. We're not gonna mess with this woman anymore.
Yeah. I thought the portrayal of Aaliyah was really cool. She's not a character. I mean, she's been in mainstream comics, but she's been, I don't know that there's ever been any dialogue that I've seen her in. She just was the daughter of a superhero team, adventuring team. But the way she was, you could see the trauma in the way she addressed her own mom. And, I thought that was good. I thought that was well done.
Where she asked, "Where's Zaddy?"
Yeah.
And then, of course, she asked permission to hug.
Yeah. All of that.
And that was even in a previous, some previous panels and some previous issues.
Yes.
I don't know if that's just because of the Rand royalty, if that was the case, but
well, that might be. Yeah, I didn't remember that, I guess. And then Mr. Terrific, he gets the bomb dropped on him from Atlanta that she wants him to raise.
Guess what, your father.
Aaliyah. And not just for her sake, but it's for his sake.
So he has someone to hold him when he dies. I thought that was a cool kind of idea.
Yes. It was the most emotion you've seen from her, from Atlanta, except when, right after she accidentally killed her husband. But seeing that, and seeing even the smartest man in the world, or whatever he is, the third smartest man in the world, that he doesn't know everything. He doesn't know what's best for him necessarily until she told him, and he recognizes that and maybe even embraces it. And then that, towards the end, that instead of him having his T-spheres asking him trivia, which I loved. I love the whole trivia thing. That he's constant, no matter what he's doing. He could be in a fight, he could be working out, but he's got these constant stream of trivia questions. It's like living and walking and breathing Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And now she's asking him the questions, and I thought that was fantastic too.
Yeah. My favorite part definitely is just the way that the whole series bookends, though, which made me want to go back to issue 1. Was like, Alana's writing that book that he's in the line for at the very beginning of this entire thing. So the past is now the present, and the future is over. It's all overlapped with each other. And I was like, that's a cool way to tell a story. That was really cool.
Yep. Well, any final thoughts on this before we give it a rating?
Sure. Okay, I made one note to myself here, Scott and Shad. I mean, whether it's action or drama, there probably aren't many stories that resonate with emotion like those involving the loss of a child. And I got to think, okay, you remember Liam Neeson in Taken? I mean, everybody was. I mean, you're like, whoa, that's my kid. And everybody's rooting for him. Even Peppermint. Was that Jennifer? It was sort of a superhero adventure type. She became a vigilante. Look it up. It's Peppermint. Jennifer Garner. Yeah, and it's only a few years old. One of her later movies. And a movie from years ago I remember watching called In the Bedroom. It was just the loss of a child. It was a drama. But all those things were coming to mind when thinking about why parents do certain things. And it made it relatable. It made it sad. I'm not happy that I'm sad about it, but I guess, not every story can be a happy ending. Even if you get an ending where where at least there's some good that's going to come out of it. So yeah, I don't think I had any other notes except for that.
I'm trying to think of when the last time outside of Strange Adventures we saw Adam Strange in a DC comic. Do you know?
Justice League United is what I remember.
Okay.
At least on a frequent basis. He was a member of that team, but he had a different uniform.
Okay.
And that might have been during the New 52.
So it's been a while.
Then, nothing. Yeah, it's been a while. So, yeah, I'd be interested to know. I mean, I guess if this is Black Label, it won't be carried over. I hope they don't try to. But then again, to be honest, I think at this point, even though the first part of the roller coaster ride, I was like, no, this can't be my Adam Strange. Now I'm like, you know what? Maybe our hero can be Alana Strange from now on. Maybe we move on to a legacy character.
Maybe.
And I think I'd be okay with it. Yeah. It's not like we're handing over, Jim Gordon to be Batman or
not that hasn't been done.
That's why I said it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's not your mainstream character that could only be it could be done for a longer period of time. It could be done permanently, which I think we've missed out on that with a lot of characters that started out that way in the 90s with the legacy characters, Wally West and Kyle Rayner and stuff. And then anyway, I'm digressing. Good stuff.
Well, give it a grade, Mike.
Rate it?
Yeah, give it a grade.
Well, on its merits alone as a story and not personal, gosh darn it, I hate to see that happen. I'm going to give it a near mint plus.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
It's the best work he's done, I think.
It's not better than The Vision, but it's good.
I haven't read the whole Vision.
Okay.
I need to get on. I need to get that digitally. I haven't read that.
Okay.
Yep.
Shad, you got a grade for it?
Yeah, I put it at a 7.0, a fine, very fine, kind of above average. This is my first adventure into Tom King and Adam Strange, really, in anything kind of a solo story of anything. I mean, I've seen him in kind of group stuff, but so I didn't have a connection to the character as much, but my rating actually went up as I reread it, yesterday to kind of like review my notes. I was like, this wasn't too bad at all. I actually enjoyed it and would even consider a full reread of the series at some point, maybe.
I'm right there with you. I got it at very fine minus, which is 7.5. I actually do want to read it again. I think a lot of things from the first 6 issues will be clearer now that we've seen the end. So I think it would benefit definitely reading it all in kind of like a not necessarily in one sitting, but in just a handful of sittings, as opposed to spread out over a year, like what it has been since we read the first 6 issues, or even longer than that. So
yeah.
Well, are we ready to move on to Abbott?
Let's do it.
I was extremely happy as we were going over this. I thought, man, I need to remind myself what happened in the first Abbott story.
Yes, it's my favorite part actually of this entire series.
Yeah, and the first 2 pages, they just give us they just give us a rundown completely of what happened here. So back in, I'm gonna see about this, Detroit, 1972. Elena Abbott is the city's hardest hitting journalist, a detective for the people. Excuse me. People have all but dismissed a series of grisly crimes committed against the city's black community, but that doesn't stop Abbott from investigating. Abbott soon discovers the deaths to be the work of occult forces, the same forces that killed her husband Samir and haunt her to this day. The police and her editor want Abbott to call it quits, to stop chasing ghosts, but soon enough, it's the ghosts chasing her. After a harrowing escape, Abbott learns that she is gifted with the powers of the Lightbringer, the only force capable of counteracting the darkness terrorizing the city, called the Umbra. One of Detroit's most influential denizens, Professor Belcamp, has made a nightmarish pact with the Umbra, kidnapping and mutilating the city's minority citizens to turn them into monstrous beasts against their will. Tracking down Belcamp with the help of her ex-husband, James, and ex-girlfriend, Amelia, Abbott is able to tap into her newfound powers to banish the darkness plaguing her city. With the city seemingly cleansed of the Umbra, Abbott picks up the pieces of her life, starting a new job at the Detroit Chronicle, the city's most prominent black newspaper. But it won't be long before the Lightbringer is needed once again. And I guess I had totally missed that she'd been married twice before. I kept talking about her husband, losing her husband. It's like, well, he was still alive, wasn't he? The cop.
Oh,
I
she had James.
totally missed that. So it was very great. It was very helpful to actually have reread or get this little synopsis. I maybe wouldn't even pick that up if I had reread it. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, they didn't, other than getting that synopsis at the beginning, I think because they had so well established her origin in that first volume that they basically had, they weren't encumbered by not having a premise in this volume. I mean, it was already set up, and this was just pure storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, Shad, I think you said you were going to try to take us through these issues.
Yeah, I got a little synopsis of each issue. So, issue 1, Elena is now at the Detroit Chronicle. At the Detroit Institute of Arts, we see a group of the Umbra discussing that Elena may have discovered her powers, but she doesn't know how strong they actually are or how to control them. There's an Umbra named Hunter who's supposed to stop her. Meanwhile, at the paper, Elena is getting settled in, but the new editor and her are not getting along. He tells her that she needs to quit smoking, stop cussing, dress more ladylike, to display respectability, though the same rules don't apply to the guys in the office. And then after leaving the office, she feels someone's watching her, and we see the purple smoke that we know is kind of the Umbra is around, and in the bushes is Henrietta, which is the woman from the courthouse or the bank or whatever it is from the first volume. I think it's a courthouse. And they grab some food together. Elena walks her home, but while they're walking, we see that Henrietta is possessed, and that's where we kind of get the cliffhanger at the end of issue 1.
Well, I kind of thought that the addition of the sexist boss was just like a little bit too much. There was already enough other stuff going on, as far as, being a minority and having all that to deal with, but having, one more thing. And they really, just other than a handful of panels, that doesn't have a whole lot to do with this story, so I don't really feel like that added a whole heck of a lot. Because like I said, she obviously has plenty to deal with as far from a storytelling perspective. So I thought that was kind of an odd choice, just to kind of feel like randomly just kind of throw that, let's throw in a new boss and make him sexist, and let's just
you know that you're in the 70s and that people are gonna They're gonna not like that you're different from everybody else on all different levels. But yeah, I really, her time with the paper is just a driver, I guess. But she could be an independent journalist and this still work exactly the same, even in the first volume. And that there's not really that part doesn't drive anything except for that she has a daytime job, I guess. It's the Spider-Man working at the Daily Bugle doesn't really drive the story much.
Yeah, I felt like in the first volume she has more interaction though with her editor in the first volume than she did in this volume. And I think and at one point she even goes back and talks to him again. Her editor from the first volume. So
I didn't think it may not have been needed to incorporate yet another antagonist in the form of her publisher, but I think if they're trying to stay with the 1970s social issues, what are all the things going on? I mean, sexism was not even, that's just was everyday occurrence. I mean, that wasn't even considered to be an issue really at that point. So, and plus with him being black and her being black, it kind of showed, okay, well, this isn't just about race. This is another issue that she's dealing with. And, but I liked, they talked about Watergate and Nixon. They talked about abortion rights, which he had Roe v. Wade in 1973. So I looked at it like that. Maybe it might have been a little bit over the top.
Kind of.
Right. Yeah.
I just felt like it's only a 5-issue story arc, and that those pages could have been used to further the main story a little bit more instead of, I feel like it watered it down just a little bit. And not to imply that those things weren't happening. That's not anything at all like what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I just like it watered down the story a little bit. So
but if it was an ongoing, you could spend a little bit more time with that.
And maybe it's obviously set up for a third volume at least. So in theory, maybe that will continue to play out in the next volume. Maybe,
because I agree with the Umbra in issue 1 when like she has no idea what she even has in her powers. I don't even know what kind of powers she's gotten. I'm like 6 issues into this character by now, and I still don't know like what can she do, and she doesn't know, and it just they don't ever spend any time actually going, like, she's not going out and going, let's see what I can actually achieve, which is a take on that, I guess, but you just don't know where you actually stand, and then her powers can be as big or as small as the writer wants them to be.
It's like the Tick's nigh invulnerability. She has nigh Lightbringer powers. So
you don't hear that every day. I like that. I'm nigh invulnerable.
All right, so issue 2, Henrietta goes to attack Elena, and Elena demands the spirit leave the body and evokes the powers of the Lightbringer. The spirit leaves the body, killing Henrietta in the process. She calls her ex-husband James, who is the police chief, he's a police officer, to get/report the body, and tells him that she thinks that Umbra is back, referencing where he had helped her in the first story. She also discovers that her bracelet is gone, and that Amelia gave it to her, and she thinks that that Umbra had taken it. The next day, she's told by her boss that she will be attending a dinner with him that evening and to wear something attractive. God, can you imagine? On the beach, she notices.
I cannot imagine somebody asking me to wear something attractive. No, I cannot imagine that.
Yeah,
we can't either, Scott.
No. I'll turn my camera off.
On the beach, she notices that Patterson Printing has an aura of the Umbra around it, and uses her Lightbringer powers on it. And that's when Sebastian comes back in the form of a spirit or whatever he kind of is. And he tells her that the new man of the Umbra is worse than Bellcamp, and to watch their eyes. She then goes to the funeral for Henrietta, or visitation, with James. And then she's pulling double duty in that dress. She goes to the Institute I got ahead of myself. She goes to the visitation. Then we see at the Institute of Arts that one of the Umbra does have Elena's bracelet. And we also find out that they can't kill Elena with the light within her. They have to figure out a way to drive the light from her before they can defeat her. Otherwise, she's kind of untouchable, it seems. Next, Elena goes to the fundraiser dinner with her boss, where she tries to be part of the conversation, but doesn't get taken seriously at all, and just end up just getting handed the wine glasses, and just kind of the help. So she leaves. She's done with that. Returns home to find that her house has been broken into, vandalized, and that Amelia is missing.
I don't have anything to add for issue 2.
Yeah, it's a pretty kind of straightforward
Yeah,
story.
it's kind of straightforward
Yeah, I
storytelling.
really don't either. Yeah.
On to issue 3. At Elena and Amelia's apartment, we see that Elena has called James back to check out that. He's just kind of on call for her, though, it seems like. I wish I would have never married this one.
Yeah, no kidding.
They don't want to file a missing persons report, though, because obviously with Elena and Amelia being together in the 70s, that's not something that they necessarily need anybody digging around into, because that's not looked upon in a positive way at that time.
Yeah, we didn't have Three's Company yet, so.
Yes. Elena says it is the Umbra, but then she gets a call saying that if she wants her girlfriend back, that she must take a vacation from work until after the election, kind of indicating that maybe it's not the Umbra, that she's getting too close to finding out how the election's being rigged throughout this story. James tells her that he will do what he can, but half the cops are under the Randazzo payroll, which is the guy who's running for the election that's kind of rigging everything potentially. Elena goes to visit her brother Elmer in a nearby town, and she runs into Madame Cadillac, one of the Umbra, who's fed up with Hunter's failed attempts to defeat Elena. Cadillac has Elmer she's got him captive, and Elena fights her with her Lightbringer powers again. And she takes on this power that's like a hawk or an eagle, and once again, like I said, nobody knows what kind of power she has, because all of a sudden she has the power of the bird, and she defeats Madame Cadillac. Elmer survives, and Elena explains to him what is going on and that she needs some help. He agrees, and they pick up his old war buddy Nutcase.
Nutcase.
Nutcase. And he's got a very large collection of guns that they take with them, and arrive at the Book Hotel to get Amelia back.
Yeah, I think I'd read this whether or not there was a supernatural aspect to the story. I think there's just enough excitement and drama and adventure. I mean, the supernatural enhances everything to a degree, but it's well written even without it. And I did like the Nutcase character. It's kind of fun watching him.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the kind of detective mystery story set in a historical time is enough to drive the story. The Umbra just kind of elevate it and make it a comic book story, I guess, kind of a little bit more.
Yes.
Well, and I think the addition of the Nutcase character, I mean, what does he really do moving forward in the story? I mean, nothing. Yeah. So
because they don't end up needing him, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess the artist needs more people drawing the panels. I don't know. So it was kind of
they wanted to name somebody Nutcase. That was
maybe they had an idea.
I guess to kind of maybe to also just more support to Elmer's character, and that he was in the war, and that it's a veteran buddy to kind of play along with that. Maybe he'll show up in the 3rd volume a little bit more and have a way about him,
because the bullets do so much against these spirits, so.
Right. All right. So in issue 4, Elena, Elmer, and Nutcase enter the hotel and ask about Amelia. The guy at the front desk knows nothing about what they're talking about, but another man shows up and asks them to follow him into the parking garage where Amelia is tied up, and Sal Randazzo and his gang are all around her. They're holding guns on each other because, of course, Sal Randazzo's gang's got guns, and then they've got a bunch of guns now too. So it's just everybody's held at gunpoint when a blast of Umbra come through and attack the Randazzo gang. Elena uses her Lightbringer powers to protect herself, Elmer, and Nutcase until the Umbra leave. When they do, they find that the chair that Amelia was tied up in is now empty. She finds a Freemason's ring, and they leave before the cops get there. With the help of some info from Fred, the previous editor from her old boss, right? They go to the old Masonic temple, where they are met by another of the Umbra Council. They battle, and when she uses the powers this time, she frees a bunch of women. Which are these past Lightbringers, you guys think? Is that what?
I took it as past victims of this particular member of the
Okay.
Umbra, is how I took it.
Gotcha. I wanted them to also be past Lightbringers because I thought that would be kind of cool. That like you had this slew of past Lightbringers, but who in turn just slaughter that Umbra councilman somehow. And then they continue on and find that Amelia is now possessed by one of the Umbra.
She just can't win for losing.
I know. Yeah, I definitely think that, and I hope maybe they touch on is like, is she the first Lightbringer? There's got to be a history of Lightbringers, right? Like, and not necessarily that there needs to be an army of Lightbringers that can come out and attack with their past spirits, but it'd be cool to know more about that history.
Yeah, it would. I agree with that.
All right, so issue 5, the last issue, we find out that Amelia is possessed by Hunter, who explains that there is a power in Detroit that gives the Umbra strength, but over the years, a Lightbringer has always tried to fight them away.
It's the lead in the water.
Yes. Amelia uses her powers to remove Hunter from Amelia's body, but in doing so, of course, Amelia dies because that tends to be what happens. Sebastian shows back up and tells Elena that she can also heal with her light, and so she's able to bring Amelia back to life. I wish he would have told her that earlier; would have saved a lot of people's lives. They take Amelia back. They take Amelia back to their home, and Elena tells Elmer and Nutcase to stay with Amelia. Sorry. While Elena goes and ends it with the Umbra. She goes to the Quality Film Productions where the flyers that have been all around town are being produced that defame Randazzo's opponent to find that Hunter is possessing a security guard. Elena calls him out and they fight, and this time Elena kills Hunter, and Hunter warns that what's coming for you next will be very, very ugly. The next day, we find out that the first black mayor has been elected to Detroit. So everything that the Randazzo group was trying to do failed. But Elena is in trouble with her boss for not being available for work during one of the biggest news events, and she agrees to that and quits. When she gets home to tell Amelia, Amelia tells her that she has sent Elmer Nutcase away and is leaving because Elena is a danger and attracts danger and runs towards it. As Amelia walks away, though, her eyes glow purple as if to be possessed by an Umbra. And then we see the Umbra named Young Thomas, states that what they've been doing has weakened the barrier for the Umbra, and they are now free to feast on the city and unleash a giant purple cloud across the water towards Detroit. And that's where we kind of end on the cliffhanger for this volume.
Yeah, they definitely set it up for a third volume. I did just check, and the first Black Mayor of Detroit was in office from 1974. Wow, it says to 1994. So Coleman, name was Coleman Young.
Huh.
Dang.
Yeah. So I guess they are tying this to that particular event. So
yeah, that makes sense. I was hoping that it would be something like that would be somewhat historically accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a little tough time with this whole thing. So, Amelia's possessed once. They defeat that Umbra. She's nearly dead. She uses her Lightbringer power to bring her back to the living, yet she's still possessed. That ending just that was too much of a stretch for me here at the ending of this story. So I just had a hard time, with that. It seemed a little too easy for setup for the next issue,
Just go right back to Amelia having it instead of like giving it to Nutcase.
Yeah,
Nutcase could have been possessed.
He could have had there'd been a reason for him to be around. Put it in the dog. I don't know.
Yeah, to hit her up twice in the same issue, being possessed by the Umbra is a little just like repeat. Yeah. And that I had a hard time just overall with it grabbing me. Though reading the notes back, I was like, this is kind of an exciting story. But in reading it, it was just I'm not a big like period piece kind of person. And having it kind of grounded in history is kind of like, okay, that doesn't get me super excited. But to me, and I said it previously, the story of the Umbra and what they're doing and the Lightbringer powers just seems not entirely fleshed out.
Right.
And so I feel like we kind of get to make it up as we go, and I don't necessarily love that part of the story.
Well,
yeah,
go ahead, Scott.
No, you go ahead, Mike.
I'm just going to say that it's the period piece that really makes this appealing to me. I mean, otherwise it's just another, we have the metaphor of good versus evil, light versus dark. And it seems like, I don't know if it's just the way we pick our stories to read and talk about, but it seems like we do that a lot. We had Shadecraft recently, with the shadow powers. Now we got the Umbra with this. There's probably more, but it's, even though I'm good with the whole use of the supernatural aspect of this story to make it more superhero-y or more comic booky, but to be honest, I'd be fine if it was just about her more grounded challenges as a reporter in 1973 Detroit as a minority.
What you want is for Brubaker Phillips to do this as a noir, isn't it?
That the kind of maybe.
Yeah,
maybe. Wouldn't have to be Brubaker and Phillips though. It could be. I think this Ahmed. Huh?
Could you imagine if it was though?
Oh man, that'd be really good. Yeah, I mean, yeah. But I don't want to not give plenty of credit to Ahmed and Cavella. I mean, their art is so gritty. It's appropriate. And I think the writing's really well done as well. I mean, but this Ahmed, I don't know what all. I think he did a lot of. He did the Miles Morales Spider-Man, right? Yeah. And, so sometimes I see more of that coming in. But this was an enjoyable read. It wasn't something I'm unhappy that I read it. And I'll read the third volume when it comes out. If it comes out, I'm sure it will.
Well, I was surprised whenever this was suggested as something for us to read. I mean, the first volume I thought was okay, but it wasn't like, mind blowing or anything like that. It's like for example, I gave this a very good 5.0. It was fine. I'm not dying to read the third volume though, and I can't imagine I'll go back and reread this. It's like, if I read volume 3, please give me another 2 pages of what's happened before, so I don't have to go back and read this again, because it didn't really do a whole lot for me. So, and I agree with you. I think the supernatural almost took a little bit away from this story. So, and the whole reason why we read the first one, because, it had come up as a, one of the best books of 2019 or 2020 or whatever. So that's why it came up as a suggestion. So, but then after having read the first volume, it was like, it was just okay. But it definitely is ripe for a adaptation for a TV show.
It does. It is. Yeah. I think it's the effects, the special effects wouldn't be hard to accomplish in a TV show. And I don't know if we're all scoring now, but I'll probably go up to a 6.0, a fine. It was enjoyable enough for me to say, if I go below fine, I don't know that I'd read it again, and or read any sequels or anything. If it's fine or better, I'll read a sequel.
And I gave it a 6.5 fine plus. Like I said, I didn't not enjoy it, but there were just enough pieces. And another thing I just found in my notes, like the parts of like the article she had written that were kind of strewn apart throughout, I thought were just a distracting part that didn't drive the story, would be a cool like back of the page, or there's another way that you could approach that where I just felt like we weren't focusing on the actual story sometimes, and we were just focusing on the fact that she was a working reporter, and I didn't need proof of that. I could see that she was going to work and everything. But yeah, it's not bad. I would, if somebody told me the third volume was out, I would be like, oh, I'll put that in my to read pile.
Yeah. Maybe get to it eventually, Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It would not filter to the top of the to read pile too quickly though. So all right, are we ready for Hawkeye?
Do it.
Good.
Hawkeye.
Hawk guy. All right. Well, I'm not that I haven't said this already, but this was just so good. Anyway, so we got 6 issues on Disney Plus. 6 episodes. Gotta stop talking about issues, start talking about episodes. 6 episodes on Disney Plus. And of course, Jeremy Renner returns as Hawkeye, Clint Barton. And I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna dive right in. So we got episode 1, Never Meet Your Heroes. And I'm pulling the 1 or 2 sentence synopsis here from IMDb. So it just says Archer Kate Bishop lands in the middle of a criminal conspiracy, forcing Hawkeye out of retirement. Now, my first thought was I didn't realize he was in retirement, but I guess okay, sure, whatever.
Laying low at the least, I guess. He's just kind of,
that's for sure. So this series pulls very heavily from the Matt Fraction David Aja comic series, which a credit to those 2 creators, and even like the art style for the animations for the opening and closing are really, they're practically stolen from David Aja. And in fact, I was reading some people online, I hadn't noticed this. They were saying that David Aja didn't even get like a credit in this series, and I didn't look that closely to see if that was true or false.
Oh, really?
Didn't. He absolutely should have, because if you look at the style of the Hawkeye series and compare it to the art style they use, it is identical. Yep. It is 100% identical. In this first episode, like that opening sequence, they basically, this is one thing I really, really liked. They show you in that opening title sequence, Kate Bishop being trained. So we don't have to spend an episode seeing how she trained up in the past. We got it all right there in that opening, title sequence. So that kind of saved an episode and gave us more time to move on for other more important storytelling, I guess. Then of course the episode, has that with Clint Barton and his kids at the Rogers the Musical, and that was quite hilarious. It's so bad it's good. Type of a thing. So they could do this today.
And you call Peacemaker lowbrow. That is the part of this series that I despised. That
See, well, one, this is not the heroes themselves being made fools of. This is how they are being portrayed. And I love the line when Clint Barton says, Ant-Man wasn't even there. Because he's in the show, but he wasn't.
Okay, yeah, well, I will agree that was a redeeming quality, was Clint's reaction to it.
And he gets up and leaves because of
So okay, I'll grant you that. Yeah,
I would not want to sit through that musical, but the 3 minutes that we get of it is
and it was almost like almost like if we had a play in 2024 that satirized COVID.
Yeah.
That would be like, too soon, guys. We just had the snap. I mean, we lost 5 years of our lives. I'm not ready for a play about it. And who saved us,
And then the addition of the swordsman, Jack, I think Duquesne is how, I can't remember how his last name is pronounced. Yeah, he's a terrific misdirect for this series, because if you're into Marvel history, he's a swordsman. He's the one who trained Clint Barton in his early Carnival days. So you just know he's going to be the bad guy. You just keep waiting for it to happen. And well, it doesn't happen. So it was such a good misdirect on part of the writers for this first episode. So I don't know. Okay, what do you guys want to say about the first episode?
Shad, go ahead, please.
One of the opening of the Battle of New York, in the Avengers, the original movie. I am really enjoying this kind of like interweaving of the Marvel lore that we know in the cinematic universe and how things are taking place within it. And this is a perfect example of it, where I just love the overhead shot of her looking at that window in the ceiling and just seeing the Shatari, craft just going over it. And so that was probably a big highlight. The musical was a big thing, but just
going back to that point. Hold on, I'm gonna go back to that point. And they did such a better job of integrating this into the past than what they did in Loki, where they just added screenshots of Tom Hiddleston looking surprised and nothing else around. It's like they actually show her looking out, and you see stuff going on in the background to better cement it into the history instead of it being just something that was clearly a shot just for that show.
Yeah.
Okay, you may continue.
Yeah. Well, and then the rest of it I felt like was just a giant checkbox of like, here's the things that we want to see setting up to put us into that Hawkeye run, that comic book run. And you just like, okay, there's my Tracksuit Mafia, there's my pizza dog, there's it's just like bam, 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 cool. Like we're off to a good start.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Pizza Dog / Arrow / in in my notes.
Yeah.
And he was such a good part of it. So
I like that.
I love some Ronin stuff.
Just that I liked it. It started out good. I'll save my comments on episodes 2 and 3 for later, but I really enjoyed the charity auction scene. I enjoyed the fact that she discovered or acquired the Ronin armor, and it gave a very believable. And besides, I just think that what's Kate Bishop's the actress's name?
Millie Steinfeld.
Yeah.
Yes. I think she's a fantastic actress. In fact, my wife liked this show so much she found another it's another show I think on Netflix that stars her as Emily Dickinson, I believe.
Oh, it's so good. Dickinson, yeah. It's good.
Yeah, it's kind of like Hamilton. It's with this whole modern soundtrack, but it's all based in the the 19th centuries or the 19th century. So anyway, they hooked me, and it's a good thing they did, because second and third episodes I was like give or take, but anyway.
Those are fighting words.
But hey, I mean, I'm not bashing at all. I'm just saying some are better than others, and this was a highlight.
It was a really good setup.
Yeah, so episode 2, Hide and Seek. Clint has to help Kate disentangle herself from the Tracksuit Mafia and a real-life murder mystery. Now, the highlight for me in this episode was basically the final scene, because we get introduced to Echo Maya Lopez, and she is probably my favorite modern comic book character. When she was introduced in the early issues of by David Mack in Daredevil issue number 9. So maybe my favorite modern character. And then I also like, because in the comics she's deaf, and they kept that part of her character, but they also added in that she had lost a part of a leg. So she had an additional disability. That's not actually part of her character in the comics. So that's just a reflection of the actress that they chose to play Maya Lopez. And then they used this to play around with Clint's hearing loss. Now, before this, there had been no indication that Clint had any hearing problems. I don't remember anything in Endgame pointing to him wearing a hearing aid or anything like that. But they kind of give you this one scene where it's just a flashback of multiple instances where he's crashed through things and been hit and et cetera, and all of a sudden, that's why he's wearing hearing aids, which they use to great effect throughout the course of this. But that also actually ties back to the very first Hawkeye 4-issue limited series, where at some point in this episode, like he's being mind controlled or something, so he puts a sonic arrow in his mouth and ignites it, and it causes him to have severe hearing loss. So again, they are paying great respect. The writers on this knew their Marvel Comics history. And they really, really respected the history of these characters. And while they made some changes, which we'll talk about some changes to Echo in episode 3, they were very respectful to everything that had gone before. So, thoughts on 2?
Not a lot. On my side, I like the just kind of little adventure he has to take with the LARPers. It's just kind of a funny little side thing, which is a lot of what this entire series is light, fluffy, good time. It's that, like, it's a holiday feel good series, smack dab right between Thanksgiving, Christmas, like, and this is one of those episodes where it's just like, where's this little adventure going to take us? And it almost feels like, I don't know, feels Scooby Dooey almost, like in like it doesn't have. And I like Scooby Doo. That's not a negative thing at all.
I would never equate it to Scooby Doo, because I thought it was definitely a little bit more serious than that. I mean, I never
gets serious in Scooby Doo.
I never felt like Jeremy Renner was not taking seriously what was going on, around him, and in fact, he was going out of his way to kind of protect Kate Bishop from it negatively impacting her. So
he got silly when he was LARPing. I felt like there was just
only because he didn't want to create a scene. He didn't want to create a scene, so he played around so he could get what he wanted to do, get done, and get out.
Hey,
so
Chad, that's called Marvel splaining. What? No,
He's making a fool, but he was playing around so that he could get in and out of there.
That was part of it. The LARPing, I think, really come to a head in this episode, or maybe right around this time, and I that put me off a little bit. But like I said, this is only taking it down from a really high mark to a mediocre mark. This episode just, I could have, I could have walked out of the room for a while and come back and not really missed anything. But I'm not being negative. I'm just trying to put it into context.
All right, should we go on to episode 3?
Let's.
Okay, because episode 3 is the one that everybody was talking about after it aired. So the episode 3 is named Echoes. After escaping a new threat, which of course was the tracksuit mafia, Clint and Kate joined forces against an expanding criminal conspiracy. So the big moment of this episode is where we get the first little hint, and we're looking at Maya Lopez's past, that the Kingpin is actually involved. So fans of the character know that after her father died Kingpin, based Wilson Fisk, kind of took care of her financially for her upbringing, for her training and everything. So here we see where she's at a dojo being trained in martial arts, that this very large figure, grabs her cheek, and it's the first, hint of the involvement of Wilson Fisk. So they were definitely true to that part of that origin of the character. Now we do get a slight modification of that origin, because instead of Daredevil being accused of being responsible for Echo's father's death, we actually see that Ronan is directly responsible for the death of her father. And in fact, that really does tie in very well to the snap time period where Clint Barton took on the persona of Ronan and was going around killing criminals he didn't have anything to live for. So he was just taking care of business. But for a lot of people, one thing that they really liked about this episode was this whole discussion about trick arrows. And what's kind of funny is they flip-flop the roles of the trick arrow discussion from the comics. So in the comics, it was Clint Barton who was really up on the idea of trick arrows, and Kate Bishop thought they were silly. Well, here in the TV show, it's Kate Bishop who's all about the trick arrows, and Clint explaining why they're kind of silly. So, but that was still, again, it was pulled directly from that Matt Fraction series. What do you guys think about episode 3?
Go ahead. Well, it's a notch up. I really enjoyed seeing them escape using the trick arrows. Trick arrows are my favorite thing with any kind of arrow hero, Green Arrow or Hawkeye. And Hawkeye, because you guys know I've read more DC by far than Marvel, but Hawkeye is probably the one character with Marvel that I've gone out of my way to pick up issues with him highlighted, because it's not just the skill set, but also his demeanor is much like Oliver Queen. Not CW Oliver Queen for all you soap watchers. I'm talking about, Ollie Queen, the smart aleck, snarky guy.
He just doesn't have the money that Oliver Queen has.
Yeah, and for a long time Oliver Queen didn't either. That was more recent, but either way, that's why I liked Hawkeye as a character, and seeing them use those trick arrows to get out of that was great, and seeing this hearing aid situation with him has really humanized Clint Barton. I thought it's a nice touch.
And I really like the cliffhanger at the end of this episode where they're in the house and they're trying to figure out is what's his face, I can't remember his name, Jack, is he really, they want to get in, find out if he's the bad guy, what's going on, and they get access denied, and then he catches them in the act, and that's kind of where it stops, is he's got the Ronin blade, and I thought that was a cool, like, okay, we still don't know where he lays in there. We assume that he's our bad guy. He's still our our bad guy at the end of episode 3.
Most mysterious character, is at this point is Jack Duquesne. So, and I guess we kind of skipped over this, but in that auction in the very first episode, two of the important items. Well, actually, there were 3 important items that were up for auction, right? And we only realized that 2 of them were important for the first few episodes. So we have Ronan's suit of armor, and then we have the Ronin sword, and thus whatever Kate Bishop, quote unquote, acquires, the Ronin armor and escapes, that is what attracts the attention of Clint Barton. And without that, we wouldn't have had any of this involvement. But then there's also the sword, which Jack is the one who kind of, with all the tracksuit mafia showed up, broke up the auction. They were after a watch from the Avengers Tower, which they don't really know why they're after. They're just, that's what they were told to get. But so Kate Bishop leaves with the Ronin suit, Jack leaves with the Ronin sword, and the tracksuit mafia tries to make off with the watch. And we don't learn later that watch is important not to Clint Barton himself, but to his wife, Linda Barton, who has also been on the phone along with Clint's kids as we've been watching through all of these episodes. So, episode 4.
Sure.
All right. So, partners, am I right? Title of the episode: secrets are revealed and hard truths emerge, culminating in a battle against 2 opposing forces. So here the big thing in this episode is that Yelena Belova, Black Widow, shows up, right? So we knew from the end of the Black Widow movie that that she had basically been told that Clint Barton was responsible for Natasha's death, so she is out to avenge Natasha by trying to kill Clint Barton. So we end up with this rooftop showdown between Clint and Kate versus Yelena versus Echo, and it's kind of like this 3-way fight amongst them all. It's actually really, really well done. By Clint's, they're trying to get Kate out of the fight, and sometimes Echo's fighting Yelena, and of course we don't know immediately that it's Yelena because she's wearing a mask, though it doesn't take much to figure out who it is. But we know now that there's going to be this extra element. Now, this is great for me at this point because we have this Echo storyline, what's going on there. We have the Yelena storyline. Of course, we have the main storyline with, Kate and her family and Jack and who committed these crimes. We kind of have these 3 major plot points in this series that are taking place throughout all these episodes. So, I don't know. What do everybody think about episode 4?
I liked the kind of direction, because the whole reason all that goes down is because they're going into Echo's apartment because they're trying to track that watch, right?
Watch, yes, exactly.
That's kind of where all that comes from, and then he finds the watch.
They don't realize whose apartment it is.
It's Echo's, yeah, exactly. and then he tries to get out, and that's where all the kind of battle comes. And so I liked how that kind of came to a head. I really love the Yelena character in the MCU. I'm not familiar with her in the comics, but I definitely I love the actress. The character is good.
Florence
So seeing
Pugh,
it was
is that right?
Florence Pugh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so seeing her was like, okay, I knew it was going to happen, but you didn't know because it was known that she was going to be in this series. But was it going to be just like the last 30 minutes of episode 6, or what was it going to be? But yeah, so that was a highlight for me for sure.
Mike, what about you?
I like this well enough. I thought the whole,
It pains me every time you say mediocre and well enough. It actually causes me pain every time you say that.
I'm sorry. I guess I need to just. Well, man. Okay. So I really like Florence Pugh too, and I like the character of Yelena Belova. I just think the whole reason her going after Clint as being at fault for Natasha's death was a little bit contrived, but again, that's me nitpicking a little bit. I thought there was a lot of good action.
That was tying it directly into what she had been told in the Black Widow movie, so they had to handle it that way. So
I see. Okay, well then
right.
I loved.
You don't watch
the
credit scenes, so you
always
forget that there are post-credit scenes at all these things.
Yeah.
Did you watch the final extra credit scene in episode 6?
I don't know. We'll have to in this series.
Oh my gosh, in Hawkeye, yeah. You didn't watch the bonus scene for Hawkeye.
I don't remember.
You wouldn't have liked it based on what you said earlier. So,
we'll have to talk about it when we get there. You can explain it to me. No, but this was okay. So if 1 and 2, 1 was a high, 2 was a little dip, 3 was a high, 4 was a little dip, and then the rest is really high. So, okay.
All right. So episode 5, titled Ronin. A fallout nearly derails their partnership, but Kate makes a discovery that changes everything. So we get a little back history about what was going on with Yelena. We learned that she was actually snapped out of existence. So she did not, I'm wearing my I Survived the Snap shirt right now. She did not survive the snap. So when she comes back, she does not know everything that has taken place. So she's having to relearn all that. And then we get this meeting between Kate and Yelena back in Kate's apartment, where she keeps referring to her as Kate Bishop. And I had a lot of questions about Florence Pugh as Black Widow. This was the scene that I'm in. I am in on this character as Black Widow. This is what pushed this character over the top. The way that was played, and honestly, this whole series did a lot for building this character in my mind. So I'm ready to see her in the full-blown Marvel cinematic moving forward. But that's not what people like to talk about on this particular episode. So at the very end of the episode, we get to see a photograph of Kate's mother with Wilson Fisk. And then the kind of closing final art image is this one of the Kingpin's shadow hovering over the city. Now, I really thought that was all we were going to get of the Kingpin, and honestly, I thought that would have been enough because it ties it in with the Daredevil franchise. We got the same actor, we got it, and everything. I was obviously wrong, but I felt like that was enough because that creates that tie between the Netflix series, Daredevil series, and with this series of Marvel cinematic proper. But we also see that now we realize that it's Kate's mom who is the big bad as opposed to Jack, even after Jack has gone to jail for being accused of killing his father. I can't remember what the relationship was of the person who was killed.
Armand,
yes.
the 13th or whatever it was.
So, episode 5, what do everybody think?
Sorry, I need to unmute. I loved it. Leave it at that.
Better.
I liked that they now have this little group of I think this was the episode where we get the LARPers back a little bit more, and they now have just like this group of sidekicks that are that are the police department kind of people. That there's kind of a goofy group of people that they can kind of rely on a little bit. The Kingpin thing, I still haven't watched the Daredevil Netflix show. So I know that's I've got some work to do, or any of the Netflix Marvel stuff.
It's the best one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. But I understood the significance, obviously, that this Kingpin was in this show. And I thought that was cool. Though it makes me like, what exists, what doesn't exist. Does everything from the Marvel Netflix now exist? Because we've also seen Charlie Cox's Daredevil show up in the MCU now, and if it's all on the table, I guess then that's pretty cool.
I don't know, what did we talk about? What episode that was where Charlie Cox showed up as the attorney?
We have not talked about Spider-Man yet. So
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
No Way Home. Yeah, we have not talked about that yet.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, just it's starting to really, everything's crossing over, and I'm kind of forgetting what where all this shows up at. Yeah, and I'm like, did he show up in this series, or was it just in Spider-Man?
Just in Spider-Man. So.
Okay, well, I'm really liking that they're bringing them all into one universe.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else for episode 5?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So episode 6. So this is Christmas. Clint and Kate's partnership is tested as they face the consequences of exposing the conspiracy. All right. Here's the one negative thing I'm going to say about this series. I'm getting a little tired of them having 2 or 3 or 4 big plot threads, and they tie them all up in like one big fight sequence. So, we got everything going on with Echo and the Kingpin. We got everything going on with the Tracksuit Mafia. We got everything going on with Kate's mother. And all that gets kind of tied up in one big fight scene there in Rockefeller Center. I really, and of course, everything with Black Widow as well. So I guess 4 big things all tied up in one big fight scene. So, but anyway, to me, the question is, because we had this scene where Echo confronts Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, and the implication is that she kills him. Now, the question is, do we actually think that he's dead? So what's everybody's bet? Yeah, no, that's the obvious. That's the obvious. Yeah, obvious. Why would they bother bringing him back to just kill him off immediately? Unless they just wanted to put a bow on that series. I don't know. So
wanted to put a cap on it, but he's disappeared, right? Like we go back to where his body would have been, and it's gone. Am I remembering that right? Or did I make that up?
Well, the way I remember it is they just phased. They pulled the shot up, the gunshot rings out, and then the next thing you know, Maya shows up at Rockefeller Center.
Okay.
I don't remember them going back, but maybe I need to rewatch that again. So
I might be mixing that with something I watched. I don't
know. So another big point in this one is Clint is finally able to get the watch back. And there's a number 19 on the back of the watch. And the implication of that, for anybody who doesn't know, is that's basically Agent 19. So you have like Sharon Carter in the comics was Agent 13. So this implies that Linda Barton was Agent 19, and Linda Barton, Mockingbird, is also Agent 19. So this is basically implying that Hawkeye's wife is Mockingbird, even though in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we actually had a Bobby Morse who was the name of the character Mockingbird. But to my knowledge, she was never referred to as Agent 19. So I think they're kind of putting a stamp on Clint's wife as being Mockingbird, at least in her past. And they were basically protecting her. All this was coming out to protect her past. And then, of course, we had the post-credit scene. And Mike, since you don't remember it, this is where they did the complete song from the Rogers the Musical.
Oh, yes. I just tried to forget it. Oh, God.
I thought I was missing something because I remembered that, but I was like, well, maybe I'm forgetting something that was going on.
No, that was well, you forget that whenever WandaVision was on, he didn't watch the scene at the end of the last episode.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
out the dark hold and manipulating everything. So
you guys are geek shaming me. I'm gonna file a complaint.
I noticed that
have a fast forward button on your controller. You can always fast forward.
I've learned since then, and now whenever my wife and I are watching TV shows, which I never even thought about there being post-credit scenes, now I'm like, hey, fast forward through here to see if there's something. Not that it's the end of the world if I don't see it. I mean, oh my God.
I think Marvel's slacking a little bit on their PS scenes. Like this one was just the musical. The Spider-Man PS scene was just a trailer. Like what's going on? They used to have some major.
Well, they set the bar
on.
really high in those early. I mean, the building of the Marvel universe. Oh my gosh, they set the bar. I mean, that was like. I mean, the movie was just one thing, but then you get that post-credit scene to see what's going to happen next, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
well,
I think
did that once before with like they showed like the Avengers trailer for like the Avengers or Avengers 2 movie as the post-credit scene in one of the earlier movies as well. So
yeah,
they did put a lot of effort into that musical. Though.
Oh yeah, had to have.
Yeah. And there's even Rogers the Musical like T-shirts and stuff that you can buy. Oh, all right. So what do you guys have to say about episode 6?
Oh, I think it was a good wrap up. I mean, like I said, there might have been a couple dips throughout the entire series for me, but honestly, it kept getting better that last 4 through 5 and 6, and it ended right where I wanted it to. And this, if you want to, everything's relative, right? So when you compare it to the other, Disney Plus Marvel series this past year, this is right up there at the top with WandaVision for me.
Mm-hmm.
Shad, you got any closing thoughts on Hawkeye?
No, I think that if overall the series, this is the most exactly what I assumed we would get out of the Disney Plus Marvel, which was a lot of handoff to a new character, setups of new characters, but not a lot of really heavy thinking, heavy anything. It's kind of light and fluffy all throughout, but with a lot of.
I don't like the term fluffy. I don't
like fluffy as a
I don't
for
like
TV shows.
For Hawkeye, no, I don't get that.
But there's not some heavy things that are happening, but it's a lot of, hey, here's this new character, here's Echo, here's Kingpin from the Netflix series, he's gonna be in here now, and we're gonna hand off Hawkeye to this new character, and we're gonna build a little bit more on Yelena, and that's exactly I think what I thought we were gonna get from all of our Disney Plus shows, was just introduction of new characters, wrap ups of old characters, and low stakes action throughout it. And this definitely did that. So I was very happy with it. Very fluffy.
Wow. All right. Well, okay. So I'm grading this as a near mint minus 9.2. There was a little bit of a bobble there, I thought, on the landing with that big single fight wrap up. But overall, this is far and away my favorite Disney Plus series. I like it way better than WandaVision, than Falcon and Winter Soldier, than What If. If I can only keep one out of all those series, this would be the one that I'm keeping. So
I put a 9.4, a near mint on it. This is something I expect to probably watch at least every year around the same
Christmas time.
Like it's my new favorite Christmas show to watch.
Yep. It beats out Die Hard.
That's right.
I'll go with a very fine.
All right, we'll just kick you off the show. It's okay.
Very fine plus. All right. I mean, that's not much more. I mean, point wise, let's see. Yeah, very fine plus. Yes. It's not perfect, but it's great.
Well, I was trying to remember when I gave this a grade what I gave Winter Soldier, and I'm trying to think. I think I gave Winter Soldier a 9.4 or 9.6 or something like that. So, it's not quite, Winter Soldier, but it's up there real close. So, which is surprising, because we don't have the world-changing stakes, and I just for me, I don't need that every single time. I just need some good storytelling. And I feel like this did a good job having a really, really good, solid story. So
you need a little fluff in there.
Not fluff. All right, we've been at this for a while. We're getting fluff happy. Fluff happy. So I think we need to pull this episode to a close.
Wrap it up.
So yeah. All right. So Mike Atchison, when somebody wants to email you and complain about your low rating on Hawkeye, what is the email address that they can do that at?
Well, the good news is I have yet to receive a negative email. The bad news is I've yet to receive an email. So my email address, if you'd so like to send me one, it's m.atchison90@gmail.com. Do not share that with the telemarketers. Thank you.
Shad, if somebody wants to send you, GIFs of that scene from Despicable Me where the kid yells, "It's so fluffy," where should they do that?
Oh my. You can do that. Please do that. That would be funny. At Shad Schubert on Facebook and Instagram. It's SHAADSCHUBERT.
And this is Scott Reed. You can find me at burgcomics.com, BURGcomics.com. And don't forget, July, I've already forgot the date that I read off at the beginning of the episode, that special event on the 23rd, which will be occurring someplace in Murfreesboro, Illinois, where we'll get Mighty Morphin again. So July 23rd, keep that on your calendars, and we will talk to you soon.
Oh, I mean, if I had been a hardcore Peacemaker fan, and this was what the Peacemaker thing that I got, I would be so ticked off. I would just be so aggravated. So,
yeah.
I won't say that I was a fan of his just because I like the idea. This was a unique character. It wasn't, and he was Punisher and Vigilante before there was Punisher and Vigilante, and he was violence in the name of peace. That whole contradiction. He was kind of foul-mouthed before, like in the comics, wasn't he? Kind of a little bit more. Well, not in Charlton. Not in Charlton. In Vigilante, he was bipolar. I mean, he had voices. He was schizophrenic. He had voices in his head, which was actually the helmet supposedly took on the souls or the personas of the people he killed. It was kind of weird. But that was a late addition to the character, as far as we know, right? Yeah, it was late as far as it was in the 80s. Was that still when Wolfman was writing? That had switched over to Kupperberg already? Do you remember? Kupperberg. Okay. I mean, he didn't get introduced in the Vigilante series until later on in the series. So. I didn't think so, but. Actually, he's a better character than Vigilante, if you want to know, or Adrian Chase, by far. Oh, yeah. God. But this version of Vigilante is nonsense, too. So, I like where but these are, okay, so it made it a little bit more, whenever they started showing that these humans they were killing were aliens, I think all of a sudden something clicked in my mind that, okay, this isn't, I can't say that they're just gratuitously killing people. They're actually the whole, like I said, the secret invasion sort of thing. But everybody can't like everything. No. Now, the scene with Adrian Chase when he puts himself in jail, though, that was a pretty good scene because he wasn't so stupid, for that scene, In the comics, you mean? No, in Peacemaker in the last episode. Have you not watched episode 4 yet? Oh, I haven't finished it. I haven't finished it, I guess. Oh my gosh. No, that's all right, though. It's not like the world ends. I kept checking. I don't know. Okay, I end up in jail for a couple of minutes, so big spoiler. I won't tell you what he does. Okay. That's actually a good scene with I'm sorry, not with Vigilante. That's actually a good scene with Vigilante, so. Yeah, well. He's not such a good for 90 seconds, so. Yeah. Like the scene where he's, they pick up his mask and he's manipulating his face. Oh, you can't tell who I am in a lineup now. Come on. That was so stupid. Like, jeez. Lowbrow. I just shook my head. You sound like my grandma whenever we would watch Mark and Mindy. She hated Mark and Mindy because it was lowbrow. Did you say Mark and Mindy? Mark and Mindy, whatever, yeah. She didn't like it because he was so stupid. Yeah. I just expect more from my comic book movies than stupid. Yeah. I don't find funny. I just don't want stupid funny. Yeah, that's a fine line. Some are better at it than others. Some of it's misplaced. You don't want Thor to be portrayed as a comedian. And I probably should, like I said, just move past it because, these aren't grade A characters. So. But look at everybody talking about Joker. I don't know. Did you like Joker? It was I didn't like it, but it was a good movie. Does that make sense? Yeah, I guess. I mean, you can't root for anybody in that movie. No. No. So it's kind of like, It's a tragedy. It's a tragic type. Yeah, and it's not meant to be a superhero movie. And it's well acted. Yeah. But, it's not I don't have any desire to watch it again. It's not an action adventure show. It's about somebody's mental life completely falling apart. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's dark. Mm-hmm. But like I said, there's all kinds of movies and yeah, it wasn't. It's not the Joker I know, but hey. Well, there's 3 Jokers, so. Oh no, there's not. Not really. And now they're saying because of Peacemaker, we've got 4 Jokers. Oh really? Yeah. But anyway. Done. That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Good job. You guys are great at this, I tell you. Surprised you don't get awards. Yeah. Oh, man.